Everyone, welcome to 10-Minute Talks. I'm Harshadeva. Before we begin, I just want to wish you all our listeners a very happy New Year. Thank you for your support, your messages, and for being a part of these conversations. I'm grateful to start another year together.
Today, I'm really pleased to be joined by Andre Vlok, a conflict resolution practitioner, mediator, author, and public commentator with decades of experience working on complex workplace, social, and political conflicts. Andre brings a rare combination of legal experience, hand on mediation practice, and long standing insight gathered from decades of work in the field, particularly in South Africa and beyond. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you very much for joining me today. So my first question is, people use the word reconciliation in very different way. Sometimes they mean emotional healing, other times they mean justice or structural changes. When you use the term, what does reconciliation mean to you?
I think that that's an important distinction. In South Africa we had a decade or two ago we had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which tried to repair some of that, and that question came up quite often. Reconciliation, I don't think we should subscribe to people what it means in their lives, but technically, I think from a conflict studies point of view, they're both of those. The reconciliation between individuals or groups or communities, but then also a much wider perception, a wider concept, national reconciliation maybe between countries, and technically, as you address them, as you work with them, that distinction is certainly important. Because the mechanisms that you use, the strategies that you use, the underlying conflict causes are different. So you certainly, I think your question pinpoints an important, at least if not in everyday language, certainly in technical studies and in strategizing, you do need to keep an eye on that difference. For me personally, it depends on who I'll be working with. A reconciliation in an interpersonal conflict, I think is somewhat easier to manage, easier to understand the history and so on. It's easier to understand and to work with. Well, again, like in the South African example, reconciliation, and you see it on social media, it literally means different things to different people. So for some people, reconciliation means some sort of it has a very large commercial aspect. There needs to be redress. For others, it is more of an emotional rebalancing. Our conflict is over. I feel better about you. We can work together. We can live together. So, the bigger the group gets, the more complex it becomes in trying to balance the goals, the perceptions of how people see reconciliation, and that is an existing current problem in South Africa. How to reconcile, if you excuse us using the term in both ways, reconcile the ideas about reconciliation, and that in itself can become, as we see in my country, can become a new conflict cause. If you don't see reconciliation the way I do, if you don't share my goals about reconciliation, then ironically, new conflicts arise. So it's a very complex idea, but it's, I think, ultimately a very, very valuable and maybe underutilized idea in conflict work.
Thank you. My next one is more about practical terms. In practical term, what's need to happen to reconciliation to be truly inclusive, and how can we tell it's real, not just words, but something that has actually happened?
Another excellent question. the South African experience, I think, is illustrative. In the early 90s, we had and towards the late 90s, we had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission trying to make peace with the atrocities of apartheid. And several mistakes were made. Too much appeasement happened. There was, it was the Mandela years. Everyone was aiming at the Rainbow Nation, and peace as a result became far too much of a goal. We had to have it. We had to get there. And true reconciliation shouldn't, of course, it should work towards that goal, but it shouldn't get there at any cost. You do need to, if you deal with the symptoms as we did, largely, you miss the conflict causes. For true reconciliation to happen, I don't think we need to keep everyone happy, but we need to be honest about that conflict. We need to be honest about the past. We need to be honest about what is viable, what can be obtained. And whether it's interpersonal or on a national or regional level, the minute we start aiming for results above the actual remedy, when that becomes more important, I think then we create further conflict. And the second part of your question, we see that if we get the reconciliation, the work, the technical work behind it wrong, then as in South Africa example, you sit 32 years later, you still have much of the same conflicts as were present at the reconciliation hearings, is still there, unresolved, cyclical, and in many respects now in worse shape than it was because of the appeasement, because we didn't drill down, we didn't have the courage to drill down right to the causes of that reconciliation. So reconciliation is a wonderful tool, and if you do it right, if you get the results right, then it is transformative. But if you get it wrong, then you simply perpetuate the old conflict causes, and sadly, you create a few new ones in the process. So it's a very responsible process. It's a very complex process, and it's very difficult to get right in the real world. How do you deal with the atrocities of apartheid? How do you reconcile around that? There's so many different models of reconciliation that you can work with. Reconciliation isn't a one-size-fits-all reconciliation. What may be acceptable to you may be offensive to me. So it really, I think, because it's so complex, because the stakes are so high, I really think reconciliation is a conflict concept and tool and strategy that we all need to study more, work more, and become competent in to a larger extent. It seems to be, at least my assessment, it has really become a bit of a cliche. We talk about it, and it's a nice thing to say, but do we really do the hard work to get there? How many examples of true reconciliation, whether interpersonal or on a bigger stage, how many examples can we really mention? So there's a lot of work to be done there.
Excellent, thank you. My last question is I recently read your article, Transforming Conflict into Opportunities in the New Year. And I thought it was very powerful message. To close our conversation, could you share that idea as a New Year reflection or a resolution for our listeners?
It's something that's taken me some time to make peace with, but we, even sometimes as conflict practitioners, some of us seem to try and avoid conflict. Let's have a year without conflict. you and I should fight less. You know, and that makes conflict this bad thing, this negative energy. And it's if we know enough about conflict, it's not. It's a positive. It can be a very positive, transformative, healing human activity. So I don't think we need less conflict. We need more conflict. And can you imagine a world, a new year, with no conflict? What would we do? How would that look? We create. If you make a little list of your best achievements, the things that you really value in your life, throughout your life, I think most or all of them would come at the end of conflict. Fighting with others, disagreeing with others, fighting with yourself, your own laziness, your own fear. So conflict is a great thing. We really shouldn't try and avoid. Conflict avoidance creates so much trouble, as we can see with reconciliation. So in this new year, we should not let's not go look for conflict. Let's not create conflict, but certainly the conflict that comes our way, let's learn how to use that as a transformative energy with those around us, to not destroy the relationships that we have, to not destroy the opportunities that we have, but to use that conflict as a spark, to, for once maybe, really understand the person on the other side, to use that as an opportunity to truly be sincere and honest about what bothers us and how we can resolve it. Bring problem solving and high-end conflict skills to our conflicts and see what gets born in the process. It really is not something to avoid. It's and may you and your viewers here be full of positive, constructive conflicts.
That's a great way to start the new year. Thank you, Andre. Wishing you a great new year ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Bodhika.